Good evening. I'd like to call this regularly scheduled meeting of the Marquette Township Board to order for Tuesday, July 15th, 2014. If you'd all please rise and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Clerk Rotary, roll call, please.
Trustee Pompo is excused tonight and absent. Trustee LaRue.
Here.
Trustee Durant.
Here.
Trustee Truscott.
Here.
Treasurer Johnson.
Here.
Clerk Rotary is here, and Supervisor Limata.
Here.
Staff President is Manager Gerard, Planner McCarthy, Committee Member Dave Wiegand from the Recreation and Roads, and John Marks from the Zoning Boards of Appeal.
Thank you, Clerk Rotary. Next item on your agenda is the consent agenda. As you know, the consent agenda includes those items that typically do not require immediate board action. This evening's includes the approval of the prior meeting minutes of July 1st, received committee reports including the Planning Committee and Planning minutes of June 25th, the Rec Committee report and draft minutes of June 10th, the special meeting draft minutes of June 26th, and the agenda for July 15th. Also, the Roads Committee report from the liaison, minutes of June 3rd, and the draft minutes of July 1. The June 2014 Fire Department Activity Report, the June Fire Marshal Report, the June Sheriff's Report, the June Water Production Report, although it says June 2013 on the agenda, it's really 2014. The Marquette Election Committee draft minutes from July 1st. Also, correspondence not requiring board action is the correspondence we received from Charter Communications regarding the HD channels. Those of you who have Charter Communications should have received a letter at home alerting you to the need of a box in order to continue to receive their channels. I'm sure it's not very popular. I would suggest you let Charter know exactly how you feel about it. You also have bills payable in the amounts of $143,589.93. Are there any items in the consent agenda which any member wishes to remove for further discussion? Seeing none,
I'll make a motion we approve the consent agenda.
Support.
Motion and support to approve. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. The next item on your agenda is approval of the remainder of the agenda. I do have one correction. That is under agenda item number 8, forum discussion on the discussion of board policies and procedures. It shouldn't have been on there. As you know, the officers of the board are going to get together to work on this. I have started to write a draft of the first initial piece, and the three of us were going to sit down, but due to a lot of vacations and whatnot, that meeting has not occurred yet. It will be on a future agenda, so I would like to strike that. Any other changes? Clerk Rotary?
I'd like to add to the agenda under new business, 10F, 2% monies requested from North Star Academy. I'll make a motion we approve the addition of the North Star agenda item and the subtraction of the forum discussion.
Second.
Motion and support. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? That motion passes. Thank you very much. Next item on our agenda is public comment. Those members of the... What? Clerk Rotary?
I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as amended.
Oh, thank you.
Support.
Just really trying to speed things up, aren't I? We have motion and support to approve the agenda as amended. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? That motion passes. Now we'll move to public comment.
Are you trying to beat 7:30?
The All-Star game starts at 8. Public comment. That's where I was. Those members of the public wish to make comment may do so at this time. As always, first, last name, address. If you would approach the podium, please. Thank you very much. Going once, going twice. We'll close public comment. Move to board member comment. Those members of the board who wish to make comment may do so at this time. Clerk Rotary.
Okay, a couple election dates coming up. August 2nd, which is a Saturday. We will not meet before that time. I will be here, or someone will be here in the Township Hall between 12 and 2 p.m. on that Saturday. That's the last time we can either issue or receive the absentee ballots. Beyond that date, things change. The election is coming up on August 5th. Polls will be open at 7, close at 8. Also, there is a change in election law this year. When we give out, or when you ask for absentee ballots, you have to produce an ID for identification. That was not, in the past, we didn't have to ask for that. This year, if you do come to the Township Hall to get your absentee ballot, we do have to ask for an ID. However, if we mail it, you don't have to, which I don't understand the law, but that's the way it's written. And so anyway, so if we ask for an ID, we have to. And I guess that is it.
Thank you, Clerk Rattari.
Pete? On August 27th, 28th, MTA's conference up here for the board members to mark their calendar. So it's a lot of good information, so it's savings to the township. And also, if we can get a picture of the poster over here for the community days, August 2nd, it's only 18 more days away. At the Lions Field over there, we got softball all day long, fire trucks and rescue display there. We got kids games, inflatables. We're gonna have great food over there by the Township Fire Department. Music, Country Showdown, 7 o'clock to 10 o'clock music going on. We'll have a beer tent, wine, and we're going to have a great time. Come on down and see us. Hope everyone makes time to come from 11 o'clock to 10 o'clock at night.
Thanks, Pete. Ernie?
Okay, one thing, I've talked in the past about credit cards for making payments and that. It looks like it's getting closer, that, and it should be some information when you get your water bills this coming August with more information on it. So within August or September, it will be available, and all the procedures will be there. It will not cost the township anything. If you're using the credit card, you will be paying a percentage, and that's the way it's set up, and that. So you have the option if you want to put in a credit card or not. It's going to be available.
Thanks, Ernie. Anyone else? Lynn?
A couple things. First, I'm sorry I missed the last meeting, being sick. But I also missed the last planning meeting, too, so I don't even have a report on that. I'll try to do this without coughing. I did watch the last meeting, though, on Facebook, or on YouTube, rather, and I was surprised at the procedure for establishing ballot language. I guess I learned something, that once we, as a board, we tell staff or direct the clerk to get ballot language, that's it. I didn't realize that, so that involved the library ballot proposal. So that was something I learned after 6 years. One other comment about the truck routes. There is a work session that the city is going to have tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. I don't know that I can get there. I'm not sure if any other board members can go.
They canceled it.
They canceled it? Okay. They keep doing that, but they have them and they cancel. Good, then I don't feel bad about possibly missing it. But I just wanted to comment that Supervisor Limata and Manager Gerard have come up with a couple of good ideas over the years on what to do with the truck route. Dennis proposed a regional meeting and trying to put something together so that the whole county can benefit and have it not be such a one-sided issue. And I commend you, and I wish that we could do something about it. It frustrates me that we go back and forth, and every time you listen to a city meeting, they go into this big tirade about how they can't get together with us. And, you know, we've made more overtures toward them as far as trying to put something together, whether it's Heartwood or 550 or the truck route, and it's just frustrating as all get out. I've talked to their board members individually, and they say, well, I don't know why the two of our boards can't get together and talk, and we still never do. And it's ridiculous. It's just this stupid battle. But there was a small article in tonight's paper, and Commissioner Cambenzi said that she's all excited about regional arts and culture possibility. And that's all well and good, but that doesn't affect everybody. And I'm getting tired of talking about and thinking about the truck routes, but we need to do something. And I don't appreciate that we are constantly, and even the road commission now, left out of meetings. And, you know, I hate to start a meeting in a negative tone, but it's just frustrating the heck out of me. So I'm glad I'm not going to miss the work session tomorrow. Maybe they'll schedule another one. Since it's open, anybody can go, but I think we need to do something, you know. Let's step up to the plate and let's force their hand or something. I don't know. It's because it affects everybody. It affects the tourists, the locals, people just driving through, the truckers. I said it before, and I'm frustrated that the truckers are getting picked on to no end, that they're creating this havoc when they're good. They're cautious, they're careful, they go slow, they're following the law. You know, they're not doing anything wrong, and they're getting beat up on this tragedy of, you know, safety. Yeah, I'm all for safety too, but let's be reasonable. So, see, aren't you glad I missed the last meeting? Got it all in one. Thank you.
Thanks, Lynn. Diana, anything? I have a couple things. First off, thanks, Pete, for mentioning Lions Field Community Days on August 2nd. We want to make sure that everybody understands to come on out. We're real excited about this is the 4th annual. It's an opportunity for people to get together and rub elbows with their neighbors. Softball tournament, I believe there is still room for a team or maybe two. So if you have a co-ed team and you want to come in and play softball, it's cheap. There are trophies for first and second place. It's only like 50 or 60 bucks entry fee. You know, all the money that we raise ends up going back into the Lions Field recreation area. We've received a tremendous amount of compliments on it over the last several years. I think that the board has certainly supported it, and the residents, the amount of comments that we get on how fantastic of what a recreational opportunities exist out there. And as we continue to move forward with our plans for the expanded kiddie park with new playground equipment, the expansion of the ice rink, we're real excited about what that's going to look like and how it turns out, including a warming shack with restroom facilities over there. And give us a couple more years to finish that project, but I think it's going to be something that we can be really proud of, and the township residents can certainly be proud of. Also, as far as the road bypass, I will say that the city, you know, again put forth a proposed truck ordinance. We did send our response. I shared that with board members. Based upon our response, they canceled their public forum and then asked if we could hold a meeting here. We did so last Friday with the informal group. It included trucking interests, Marquette County Road Commission, some adjacent property owners for some of the proposed routes, and they had several variances on how they could proceed moving forward. Most of them included not having a north-south through truck route unless and until we developed a bypass or the bypass was permitted and approved. The road commission manager, Jim Iwaniki, did an excellent job of trying to broker a good alternative for moving forward. I'm not sure how well it was received. We'll find that out as we move forward in the future. There is no scheduled meetings ahead of us, although we'll see what that looks like. The city was to go back, and their transportation subcommittee was going to meet with the committee and then present to the board, and then they were going to discuss their options. I did deliver the message from the Marquette Township board after one of the city commissioners had made the comment that it shouldn't just be one person saying no to their truck ordinance, that it should be a full board, and he wanted to see it in the meeting minutes. I said the reason that I could continue to deliver that message, that we needed a north-south corridor through route through the city before we were willing to continue on to explore talks about a bypass, was because we have been very transparent and consistent. We haven't changed as a board what our wishes are. The city needs to take their share of the burden and maintain a north-south through truck route, whether that be McClellan. I agree with him that trucks maybe shouldn't run down Lakeshore or 3rd Street or Front Street for that matter, but they have to run through somewhere. And unless and until they establish a north-south through truck route, we know that when a bypass is constructed, that the vast majority of traffic is going to go out to that bypass. Our goals have been very straightforward and clear. If we can move trucks as far west as possible, then we can potentially support it. Lynn's right. I did call last year for a regional traffic study that would really help us determine what's the best place to put a bypass and how to move trucks through for the foreseeable future, out for 30 years. Unfortunately, Lundin had originally agreed to finance it up to tune of $500,000, but then we stopped meeting as a group as a whole because the city informed us that they couldn't move forward until they brokered a deal with Lundin, so that derailed everything for several months while they worked out a deal. I'm glad to report that the city and Lundin have worked out a deal for the 3.5 miles or so that Lundin comes through off of 550 and uses Sugarloaf to Wright Street. But it did stop progress on everything for several months while they worked through that. Now it's just back to the table now, and they roll out basically the same ordinance they had beforehand. We will continue to meet them any time that they want to meet. We will continue to open those discussions up and listen to anything. I think that, again, Jim Iwaniki has, again, presented some options, and I thought that's what they were going to meet on and then come back to see if that was something that we could move forward with. We'll continue to be very consistent on this. They did accuse us of, at one point, of trying to block progress on a bypass. I did point out that the bypass has been noted in our road facilities plan for 10 plus years. We recognize the need for, making the corridor less congested and safer for everybody. But certain routes will do that and certain routes won't. And having those vehicles come out as far west and maybe as Midway, would that help us? It could if it's combined with MDOT's corridor improvements that are planned for a few years out. We can separate traffic. There could be some good potentials for that. But unless and until the city recognizes the fact that they need to have a north-south through route through the city, they're basically just pushing all the truck traffic out here, adding to the congestion. Those trucks now have to come out, take a left turn, and travel back east to go south and go all the way back through the corridor heading east. What I said is if that's the ordinance that they're going to pass, then we'll deal with the truck traffic as it is. We'll start looking for funding to hold a traffic study of our own. That may take a year or so. Then we'll initiate the study. That would take a couple of years. After that, we can try to find funding for a road. That might take a few years, and then we'll construct it. So we'd be 10 years down the road. Or we can work together and probably pass something a lot quicker, secure funding, and move forward if it's in everybody's best interests. And we'll see where it goes. The ball's in the city's court right now, and when it comes back out, we'll inform the board of where we're at and what they're proposing, and we'll see if we can't move forward. I think we can. I think there's common ground out there. I believe we'll find it. I just don't know when that will be. Thank you. There's no other comment. We'll close board member comment. There is no forum discussion. We'll move to unfinished business 9A. Consider the road committee presentation of order of repair for the proposed road millage. The materials were distributed at the last meeting of July 1, and Jason is taking this first. Looks like the road committee chair is abandoning him.
Good evening. This presentation is to follow Dave. Dave's given you some background, and we'll get into that. But this is the local road project deliverables and project funding presentation. It's pretty short and to the point, but just as a brief project background, in 2013, the road committee commenced a project to study the local roads in Trowbridge Park and presented some findings to the Planning Commission to the board. As a result of that, the Township Board directed the road committee and staff to expand upon that study to include all local roads within the community. So the road committee then provided a revised order of repairs based on Paisley ratings and local factors that we added to that, such as complete streets, north-south connectors, emergency service routes, school bus routing for all the local roads in the township. Gotta remember to switch that. In June of 2014, the Township Board heard presentations on methodology that Dave provided. He's probably the most knowledgeable committee member on Paisley ratings and road software, I would say, in Marquette County. Tonight's presentation is intended to answer the questions regarding who, what, where, when, and how. So who are our partners, or who, more importantly, are the board's partners in this project? We feel that they are, most importantly, the township residents, staff, the county road commission, and the county drain commissioner. So from the township resident standpoint, responsive to their input on prior community surveys, road and transportation management have been their top stated priority. Our residents have supported the last 2 major road millages, with the current .85 millage expiring this December, in order to improve the quality of roadways in the township. The proposed project is the most aggressive reconstruction improvement in the history of Marquette Township. Now, Randy and I said that, but we can confer with Jim, but I would suspect that it's a fairly aggressive project and something that staff is becoming more and more proud of as we move forward. The achievement of your stated, or the residents' stated desires for improvement in roads will be a question for your decision on the November ballot, should the board move forward with that. Township staff perspective, will continue to administer prospective grant applications. Staff will also provide technical assistance with financing package and assist with project design and oversight to ensure quality control and cost effectiveness. In discussions with the County Road Commission, they have offered to provide design, engineering, construction, and construction oversight valued at between 15 and 20% of this project, and calculated at 17.5% for this project cost estimation. In discussion with Mike Farrell, the County Drain Commissioner today, he had stated that he's willing to provide some technical assistance and design support. There are areas of the community where he knows that there are drainage issues that may not, residents might not come out and state those, but he has some historic knowledge of those sites. And there is a pot of money in a revolving sense for state revolving funds, low interest loans for those those portions of the project affecting the Badger Creek Drainage District. And so today I had to ask Kirk, I said, well, what exactly does that entail? So I went in the vault and pulled out a map, and then I digitized it, and you can see it really takes up quite a bit, probably half almost of the Trowbridge Park area, and a good portion south of the highway as well. So those projects in particular, there's money out there to help with bit curb and things that we can do creatively to channel stormwater, which is something that hasn't aggressively been done probably in some time other than on Brookton Road, which was recently repaired, and we do some bit curb channeling of water there. That bit curb is used as a lack of, there's no stormwater system in that area, so we have to be creative with those. So the what? Our deliverables for the project, if supported by our residents and the township board, will be, for the first time in recent history, Marquette Township local roads will feature an outstanding road surface condition, adequate drainage, and a sufficient non-motorized network that will be financially sustainable to maintain into the future. Together with the Marquette County Road Commission and the Marquette County Drain Commissioner, our township will utilize modern engineering design to maintain and/or reconstruct all necessary local road surface repairs and stormwater management measures within 3 years. We'll also provide some improved lighting for the neighborhoods. This is just a diagram showing what proposed adequate lighting is for each of those activities across the top. Increased walkability. The map on the right demonstrates that pretty much from anywhere in Trowbridge Park, Lions Field is accessible from about a 15-minute walk. We intend to, through our complete streets ordinance and the order of repairs, the way that they're listed, to be creative with some kind of measures to increase walkability in the community. Dennis, our water department employee, brought in a innovative infrastructure solution for manhole covers that often you notice those when you drive over them. After a number of years, they become sunk into the pavement. This particular model is a floating implement where once it is installed, the unit will continue to move at the road surface. The road surface aids in absorption of traffic, vibration, and shock, further protecting the life of our infrastructure and critical underground structures. So this is a more modern technique for manhole covers. And here is an example of the utilization of bit curb for stormwater drainage, and hopefully we'll have funding to perform maintenance so that a lot of the culverts that are being utilized in some of the swales at the intersections, we'll have money to clean those out and keep them performing as they should be. So the where, all local roads within Marquette Township are proposed to receive reconstruction and/or maintenance upgrades within 3 years if the funding project request is approved by our residents and the board to ask the question. When? These repairs would occur per the Township Board's direction and then per the proposed order of repairs schedule. The next slide shows all of the roads that would be improved during the 2015 alone. It's a pretty aggressive schedule. I suspect we'll have multiple contractors. It'll be very busy couple, 3 years. But in the end, we'll have a road network that is maintainable and satisfactory to our residents, which has been, and I know that it's before I came here, but the #1 priority of our residents to fix. So how? Reconstruction, maintenance, lighting, walkability improvements will require an intense amount of planning to implement, not only from a logistical stance, but also from a financial perspective. Manager Gerard will detail potential creative funding mechanisms to make the project a reality. And with that, I will turn it over to the manager.
Did you scan that?
Yes.
Well, this has been a subject of discussion with the board ever since we did our first community survey, and the results came back overwhelmingly that roads and transportation networks were far and away the #1 issue in almost all of the questions and almost all of the categories of the survey regarding general walkability, general life within the township, funding capabilities, recreational opportunities, and other amenities. The two top issues always turned out to be condition of the roads and snow plowing. And, I don't think that's a surprise to anybody. I don't think it's a surprise to the road commission or the drain commissioner or anybody else. It's obvious what the issue is. It's obvious at a national level, it's obvious at a state level, but none of them at the federal or the state level are doing anything to address it. As you know, our legislators here in the state this year, with a roads package in front of them, decided to not act on that and broke for the summer. So we have taken a position that we're not going to get any help from the legislature, either state or federal. So what does that leave? That leaves us. If we're going to fix our roads, it's going to basically turn out to be us in combination with what help is available from the other agencies like the Road Commission, Drain Commissioner, and so on and so forth, and we have spoken with them. Now, the order of repair that the Road Committee has put together was first presented to you about roughly 6 weeks ago, I believe, and it's a it's a very detailed, fair representation, taking into consideration, as Jason mentioned, the complete streets ordinance that we've passed and the traffic patterns here in the township. And there's been an estimation based upon PASER ratings, based upon current construction costs, that this entire project is about a $7 million project. And it's designed, as Jason mentioned, basically to within 3 to 4 years, depending upon weather conditions that we have and the building seasons that we have, essentially bring every road in the township that is not a county primary road to at least a PASER rating of 6. And Dave can speak to what that means, and he's already addressed that a couple of times at prior meetings, but at least to a PASER rating of 6. And that will put our roads in a situation where I believe it's through 2021, we won't have any major maintenance to be done. The plan that is in place after the initial 3 to 4 years of construction does contain funding in that $7 million estimate for maintenance each year to maintain those roads at or near a PASER 6 for, I believe, another 13 years after. Beyond the construction. So it helps the Road Commission out. It helps, from the standpoint of their maintenance. And the key here is to try and get this completed. Now, with that estimated $7 million in consultation with the Road Commission and with several other entities, we've come to believe that we need to build into that a contingency fund, if you will. I don't like that word, but it's basically a contingency fund because you can't guarantee what the cost of blacktop is going to be or the cost of labor or whatever. So I've included about a 10% factor in that, bringing that total to $7,700,000. We have met with the Road Commission, as Jason mentioned, and the Road Commission graciously, as they have with our prior millage-funded projects, agreed to assist us with design, engineering, and construction oversight services. And historically, that would be about a 15 to 20% cost factor. So we have deducted that cost factor from that Payzer rating figure, bringing it down to $6,352,500. Now, that is the total amount that we're projecting at this point in time. That does not consider any growth that might occur in the township over the period of time that these roads are being done. That's all in today's dollars, and all of the figures that I'm going to be referencing are in today's dollars as of 2014. So we have that big of a project. What does that mean? How do we pay for that? Looking at $6,352,000, if we were to go straight millage with no assistance from any outside sources, just straight millage with our residents, right now, as it sits in 2014, one mill generates $235,206 a year. Okay? You can tell pretty easily that it's going to take about 27 years at one mill to pay that back, not including interest, not including any growth, but based on 2014 dollars. At 1.5 mills, that drops it down to 18 years. At 1 3/4 mills, drops it down to about 15.5 years. 2 mills, 13.5 years, and 2.5 mills, 10.83 years. Okay, as mentioned previously, that does not consider any growth or development. Now, we have put together also a, do you have the spreadsheet? Yeah. This spreadsheet basically demonstrates assuming a 3% a year growth. Now, we've been averaging over the last 15 years between 7 to 10% in growth. We have some large developments potentially on the horizon, so we're being extremely conservative here. We're only basing it on a 3% growth. And you can see at 3% growth, it dramatically changes what the impact is. At simply a 3% growth rate, you would be at 1.5 mills, you would be at 15 years. So it would drop it 3 years from 18-year time frame to a 15-year time frame simply on a 3% growth. If you increase that to 5% a year growth, it drops it down to 13 years, about 13.5 years, because in year 14 you would levy a small part of that millage. So the point that I'm trying to make here is that even if we had no assistance from the outside sources, at 1.5 mills, we can probably pay this off if the residents will vote in 1.5 mills within 15 years. Possibly 13 years, possibly 12 years, depending upon what our actual growth rate is going forward. Now, the other piece that needs to be considered here is a prior slide mentioned, we currently have a 0.85 mil on the books for roads. That expires this year. So you're only talking potentially about a renewal of that 0.85 and an addition of about 0.6 mils to equal 1.5 mils. So if the residents are truly serious about fixing the roads and having decent, livable roads, it can be done. What does that mean to the residents? What that means to the residents is, based right now on these figures, if you have a $350,000 home, it's $175,000 taxable value, your annual cost of this would be $262, $21.88 a month. If you have a $200,000 house, that drops it to $150 a year, $12.50 a month in terms of the millage. $150,000 house, valued at $75,000 taxable, $112, $9.38 a month. And most homes are in about that $100,000 to $150,000 value. At $100,000 value, drops it down to $6.25 a month to have every road in the township repaired within 4 years.
Is that calculated as the entire 1.5 mils, or is that calculated at the 0.6?
That's the 1.5.
Thank
That's
you.
1.5 mils.
So they're already paying a portion of that right now at the 0.85.
That's correct.
So we're not talking about an additional even at a $100,000 house. We're not talking about an additional $75 a year from what they're paying right now. We're only talking
Total.
less than half of that.
A total
That's
of
a
75.
5 mils.
Now, again, that's based upon the entire $6.35 million project being totally funded by the township. We have had discussion with the road commission, with Jim, about the road commission functioning as our DPW for roads and potentially bonding part of this. We've also spoken with the drain commissioners. Jason mentioned there is SRF money out there for drain control, for runoff control, that is low-interest financing that could also come into this. I have had discussion with local financing entities, and there is willingness to, because it's based on millage, to front-load this and front-fund it just like we did with the township facilities. In other words, take out a full loan for the full $6.3 million if we go alone and assume the full responsibility on a full fixed term over the 15 years, 4%. If we were to go with a balloon sometime along that line where they had a little more flexibility, there would be a lower rate up front and then a refinance somewhere downstream like we were doing with this building. So there would be, with these buildings, so there would be a calculation of where we thought that break-even point was in terms of how we built the balloon, whether it was a 5-year, 6-year, 7-year, 8-year, whatever balloon.
We front-loaded the financing of it, Randy. Would that impact our ability to potentially participate in any grant funding that could become available down the road?
It should not. The grant funding that we're eligible for these days is very minimal. There's not very much. Usually it's recreation grants and things such as that this would not impact. Most of the community development block grants and the other type of programs coming from state and feds, and Jim can speak to this, or Mr. Farrell can speak to it, either one. Basically, the requirements have been written to, in my opinion, exclude townships. Basically, most of them require that you have a downtown district that's been in existence for at least 25 years that has multiple story. And that excludes almost all townships, and it excludes us. We are also excluded because of our income level in the township. We don't qualify for any of the financing that's targeted to financially challenged communities. In that respect, we're lucky. Even though we don't qualify for the grants, we've not been impacted by the downturns in the economy. So long and the short of it is, we do have, again, if the residents are serious about having the roads fixed, we do have the capability at 1.5 mils over 15 years to pay this off on a straight millage. Obviously, we would prefer to have some other mechanisms come into it to offset those costs and to reduce the cost to the residents, freeing up millage for other uses. But if push comes to shove and if there are no other options available, it is possible for the township to go forward and do this.
Lynn?
Randy, what do you see the impact of the tax tribunal with this? I mean, because like you said, our growth has been 7 to 10% or 5 to 10, and then you backed it off to 3. Is that part of what your mindset was?
It's part of
Balancing
it.
there?
It is part of it. We want to be extremely conservative on this, very conservative from the standpoint not only of that, of that issue that's out there facing us, and that is an expanding issue, obviously. We do have our documentation into the Supreme Court. It has not been acted on yet by the Supreme Court, but there are now other groups that are starting to recognize statewide what the impact of this is, and there is a groundswell that's coming, basically, in support of our position that we've been fighting for the last almost 3.5 years alone with Brighting Township. So those things are starting to come forward, and I think there's a little bit of a difference when you get to the Supreme Court level, because they're not looking at legal arguments, they're looking at what the law says and what the law was intended to do. So they're evaluating it from that standpoint, and they have had at least 3 taxation cases, not tribunal cases, but taxation cases that have gone before them that they have returned to the courts. They've mainly been on interest payments and things such as that, but they are related to tax. So they have been taking tax-related cases. In addition to that, we still do have growth that's occurring, and that's why we thought 3 to 5% would be a reasonable position for the board to look at, even though we've had a higher growth rate than that in the past.
Conservative approach.
Conservative approach on one side, high cost on the other side, just like I do the budget. We're projecting the costs at the high end, the revenues at the low end. So we have that flexibility. So we're being very conservative in terms of where our revenue stream is coming from and high on the costs. One of the things that is significant, and we did do it with Werner, and we've done it with a couple of our other projects, is timing of the bidding is critical, and the Road Commission has also volunteered to handle the bidding for us. But we want to have these bids go out at a time when contractors are hungry and looking for work. That worked well for us in the last 2 millage projects that we've done. Just to remind everybody what those were, obviously everybody remembers Werner Street. That was the most recent one that's just wrapping up. And in fact, it did, over the term of the growth, basically the growth over the 5 years that millage was levied, paid for the repairs to Brookton Road,
Right.
which is what we said we would do in the millage question. The prior millage that was, I believe, in 2006. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it was in 2006 that it was on the ballot in '05, and we did it in '06. We followed the same process. That was the board adopted a plan. The prior board adopted a road repair plan that consisted of Fair Avenue, and that was in conjunction with a water project. But Fair Avenue, part of Fair Avenue was included, and there were 4 or 5 intersections that were redone and segments of road that were redone that were very specifically identified by the board in a road package that passed. And that was the same kind of a thing. We did it over 5 years, went to local financing agencies, bid it out. Basically, they competed for the job. We got a low interest rate, did them all at the same time, and then paid it off over 5 years collecting the millage. And again, at that time, it generated more revenue than was necessary because of the bidding process and the actual growth in the township. And that money came back into our road fund and was used for repairs.
Jason, do you have more in your presentation? Or
Just as a follow-up and a conclusion, in addition to public hearings at the board level, publication of board-approved road rehabilitation plan and media by e-blast on website and Facebook pages as utility insert, etc. Recommend establishing a public drop-in discussion sessions twice a week, starting immediately following plan approval until targeted election date. So essentially, I've volunteered to be here for the residents to come in. We'll have this information blown up on posters with maps. Folks can come in and see what year their road's going to be repaired, how it's going to be repaired. They can ask questions, and I think that's a very prudent thing to do to make ourselves available, to keep it transparent and consistent about what we want to do. I know that the residents have supported these millages in the past, and we feel, and especially with the road committee, it's not just about road surface repairs. We really do want to make the community more walkable, identify areas, avenues of approach to parks and other features that residents like to get to, whether by bike or by wheelchair or by just walking. So, Randy kind of handled the package for financing. Dave did a lot of the grunt work for putting the order of repairs together. In fact, the whole road committee really did. But very proud of their efforts, and I was just there for assistance technically, but I think that what you have before you is an honest shot at doing this ourselves and having a road network and a drainage situation that we're proud of and that we can move forward. I think one of the benefits of this is after that initial 4-year onslaught of road repairs and improvements, the subsequent repair or maintenance costs are right around $150,000 a year. So those things, and the county is able to bond and help us out, and if the drain commissioner can contribute to our drainage issues, there is an opportunity to perhaps roll that back after a time. And I don't know if that's ever been said before at a board meeting about rolling back a millage, but certainly that's an option. And if not, then there's other projects that might be out there that could be utilized for.
Jay, could you put that Excel spread back up for just a second?
Sure.
Okay, now if you look at this, what Jason was just talking about is that what we're projecting is for about roughly that 13 years after this project is completed, after the first 4 years of construction, let's say, for the next 13 years, simply by doing some relatively routine maintenance, chip sealing, crack sealing, things such as that, we can keep adding years of life to those roads without any major repairs. Now, What Jason just said was it's about $130,000 a year. That is included in this $6.3 to $7.7 million project. That is included. But if you look at this, let's assume that you levy the millage for 15 years. You'll see that in year 15, you've got an excess. You have an excess of $225,000. Well, there's 2 years. That's 2 years of your repairs just in the excess in that 15th year. You pay the millage off, and it still generates in that draw another $225,000. So I'm just suggesting to you that you're going to already have 2 years of that funded. That'll give you an addition. That gives you basically 5 years to amass those funds. You're already putting $50,000 a year away for roads generally, as well as, you know, you've got, as a for instance, you know, you've just over the last 2 years you've put away $55,000 for Kitty Park. You put aside $40,000 for the ice rink. You know, so just in 2 years you got $90,000 that can go towards this. So it's doable. I mean, it's not something that is going to be easy. It's not going to be pleasant. The residents are going to have to step up and say, yeah, we really do want our roads fixed. We are looking forward to, as I mentioned earlier, we're looking forward to some help possibly from the Drain Commissioner and the Road Commission in terms of reducing that $6.3 million. That would then further potentially reduce that turnaround period and the payoff.
By continuing the maintenance, you're going to gain a lot in the long run.
You gain a lot, and it will help, you know, they're both here to answer any questions that you have, basically the Drain Commissioner and the Road Commission manager engineer as well, to answer any questions that you have beyond that. But obviously, one of the things that we're looking at is they're both hamstrung with money as well. The Drain Commissioner's got, well, just looking at what's here in Marquette Township, just in the Badger Drain, expand that county-wide that he's responsible for. So what we're also trying to do besides solve our problem is maybe give them a vehicle that they could utilize to work with the other townships in the county to say, look, there are ways you can do these things if your residents are really serious about solving some of their own problems, because you're not going to get help from the outside.
That's going to have other roads in the township too.
Before I open up for questions, I just want to point out that we do have Jim Iwaniki from the Marquette County Road Commission, engineer manager, here this evening, as well as Mike Farrell, the Drain Commissioner. So if the board does have questions, these guys are here to answer those questions. So as we open it up, if you have further questions that we think need to be answered by either Jim or Mike, they would be happy to approach the podium and answer those questions.
And
for us.
just one last comment that I want to make before Dave and the others take over. But Jason raised the critical point here is communication with the residents and having them understanding what we're talking about. As you look at this order of repair, it looks like a really daunting document, but it's really easy to follow. It really is. And you know what we found we've had three. In the 12 years I've been here, we've had 3 road millage questions that have gone to the voters. The first one failed miserably because it was simply a millage for, quote, road repairs. Didn't specify anything, and it failed miserably. The very next year, we came back with a very defined package of what was going to be done, what was going to be fixed, and it passed 2-1. That was basically a 0.6 mil. In at 0.62, I think it was. It was moving back up to the statutory 5 mil cap. Then came the Werner project. Everybody recognized that Werner was bad, and that passed about 2-1, roughly 2-1 as well. But again, it was a very defined request. And I think if you do the same thing with this, Jason suggested, twice a week meetings. Yeah, I think you should have 4 meetings a week. Set 2 days that staff will be here, 1 during the day, 1 in the evening, to answer any questions, walk them through the process, whatever, so everybody who wants to understand this can clearly understand it and look on the list and see, as Jason said, where their road is, when it's anticipated to be fixed, and what kind of a fix, whether it's a chip seal, a crack seal, a reconstruct, a resurface, whatever.
Most of them will be reconstructed.
Most will be.
Ernie?
Okay, Jason, can you bring up that slide that laid out the cost by the millage for each one of them?
Yes, sir.
Okay, looking at this here, and right now we're at 0.85, which is 85 cents per thousand. And that-
Correct.
And taking the bottom 50,000, because it's easier to figure in that runs about $43 a year, somewhere in that vicinity.
Correct.
So you add that 0.6, you're adding about $30 a year. So in essence, you're increasing your tax by $30 on a $50,000 home,
Correct.
or $50,000.
Taxable.
value.
$100,000 actual value.
So it's,
Yeah. This is not huge. I mean,
no, it isn't.
It really isn't a huge dollar amount, and if you're, what we're looking at is, what's reasonable in terms of a time frame. Well, if you're talking about roads that are gonna last, out 15 years, is it reasonable to carry that millage out? And again, we intentionally did not calculate in the creep, the growth, the roll-up. We intentionally didn't, because basically, same thing we did with the other two millages. You come to a point where the millage is paid off and you still have revenue, so that growth does give you the opportunity to shorten the millage time frame as well. Like I said, if you're planning on 3% growth and it's actually a 5% growth, you cut off 18 months. You cut 18 months of levy off.
Lynn?
So, I thought I heard you say two different things. I thought I heard you say Drain Commissioner grant and then low financing. So, are
Well,
those two
there,
different things? or-
well, there may be some grants. I don't know if there are grants still out there with the drain, establishing drainage districts and things such as that. But there are revolving loan funds, which is what we work with Public Works. This is stormwater, basically revolving loan funds, and typically when they come out at a low interest over usually a 20-year period, for financing. So those would reduce the cost of the project. If we're talking about a fixed financing for 15 years at 4%, and then we can pick up a 2.5%, well, you just saved 1.5%.
So are you seeing, you're thinking then the ballot question would be,
The ballot
Would you
question would be
eliminate-
not to exceed the full amount, the 6.35 million, basically. It would be the total project to be reduced by any other funds that we come up with, but
then-
not to exceed. So it would be 1.5 mils for 15 years, basically, would be your question.
and
And
how
then-
would, how would
and-
we detail? We obviously can't say.
Well, what...
Or I guess you could describe to redo
Well,
all the
the
roads
way,
in township.
here's the way we worded the millage in '05, basically, and there's, the clerk can provide examples of it, but in essence, what it said was, I'm just gonna paraphrase, do you, the voters, authorize the levy of .6 mils for the purpose of accomplishing the road project plan as adopted by the township board? And then we had that plan published as to which intersections were gonna be done, which sections of road were gonna be done, so they could physically look at what they were. And we would do the same thing here, I would suggest, anyway, would be to put the language together to say, do the residents of the township authorize the levy of 1.5 mils for 15 years for the purpose of accomplishing the road facilities plan as adopted by the township board on such and such a date? And then you would have that published.
Not to exceed.
So
Oh,
the
you wouldn't
millage
even
we
put the
have
dollar
now,
amount in.
we wouldn't put that back on, the .65 or whatever, we don't.
0.85, no.
Question at all.
Does the
This would
village
replace it.
question, is it a renewal plus an addition, or this is an
No,
entirely
this would be an entirely new millage. Now, that raises another question, and the deputy treasurer raised it earlier today, was, if we go put this question on the November ballot, it will be subject to rollback in 2015. If we put it on the May ballot, which will be probably not as well represented at the polls by the voters, it would not roll back until 2016. So the question that you've got at risk here is the rollback for 1 year, which is not a significant figure in terms of this process. So I would still suggest we go forward with November.
But by putting it on the May one, you will not have access to dollars.
Till the 17.
Right.
Yeah, correct.
That's the problem there.
Yeah, so the November ballot, even though you're subject to the rollback, the heavily rollback, and we don't know what that is, we won't know until they calculate what that is, but you'll be subject to that for 2015. But, as Ernie just mentioned, that'll be the impact. You'll start collecting it in 2015, not in 2016.
Secretary?
Yeah, I did send an email to the board, I think it was earlier this week. I did err. July 29th is not the date we have to get this in for. It's actually August 12th, so if you guys want to chew on this for, the next 2 or 3 weeks, you can do that. However, I got to get that language. Probably would be good to get that language drafted and to our first August meeting. And that would give me plenty of time to get it legally reviewed and to the county clerk by August 12th, if
Yeah.
we do go forward with this.
Now, the board's question that's before you, basically, whether you want to deal with it tonight or move it off to another meeting, is, do you think we should do a millage? A question on the ballot, and does the recommendation sound like a reasonable millage? Then it's up to staff, basically, to educate the residents, staff and board members, to educate the residents between now and November when they actually vote. So you're not committing to anything. All we're asking you to do is to put the question out there before the voters.
I think that's an important distinction, because it's one of the things, again, I don't care what strategic planning sessions we held or the citizen survey that we mailed out and asked for responses, every one of us knows that the response was roads, roads, roads. Every single meeting we held, every single citizen response, what's the number one issue that faces this township? It's roads, roads, roads. So it's being able to find, I mean, I think from a board standpoint, we have to decide what's equitable. You know, is it the 1.5 mils? You saw the chart, you know, we're kind of looking at this as 1.5 mils. Is that a fair ask for people? Is it 2 mils and pay it off in 10 years or whatever the chart showed? But I think we have to put it before the residents, and they'll let us know if the roads were that big of an issue and they're willing to spend their money. I think the challenge is going to be in the education part of it, talking about you've already been paying 0.85. This is only an additional, 0.6 mils, and I think that's going to be the biggest part that people won't necessarily understand right away. So it's really going to behoove everybody, including staff and every board member here, to get behind it and support it should the board decide to go forward. Pete?
If it wasn't so obvious, and it's our responsibility as a board to point out to them, and to find a way to fix it, because that's what we're here for. I mean, if you get Jim up here and ask him, say, okay, why don't you fix our roads? We know the answer already. You don't have the money. I mean, if he had the money, he'd be running around here fixing all these little side roads after this rainstorm. He don't have the money, he don't have the people to do it, So we have to educate the people to take away the scare factor of raising the millage to get this thing done. They want it done. They ride up and down these roads every day. They make a joke out of it. You talk to anyone in the township, and it's a sort of a laugh. It's a joke, our roads in the township. This is just our factor right here. There's other roads in the township that we have to take care of. If we can take care of our roads now, they can take care of some of the other roads outside of the area that belongs in our township, the 56 miles of roads that we have. And so if we can do a good job, like Jason said, educate the people, let them know that they're going to be all right. Warner Street, they did a good job. They fixed the water problem that's going to protect that road for years to come. Brookton, they fixed that road. We got other problems with Brookton that we can fix in the years to come. But we can't keep shoveling the water down the drain, and that's what we're doing with these roads. We have to tell the people, they know already, but we have to sort of ensure them that we're going to save money by doing this in the future. So it's our job to sort of ensure them that they're going to be all right in the long range. So I'm all for it.
Thanks, Pete. Lynn?
So Randy kind of mentioned about having our 50,000 that we put toward the roads. We know that. We've got that budgeted every year. You said we could add that to this. I think I would rather see, and I don't know how that would affect the plans already in place with trucks and stuff, but taking that 50,000 and putting it toward the plowing side of it, because that's the other side of the coin that the residents and the businesses are concerned with, is the plowing part. And we know that Jim's hands are tied there from the county standpoint. And I know you guys have been talking about trucks and how to do all that. But that would be, I mean, what else would there be then? We could earmark that money, if we want to use that word or not, for plowing. Whether that's a contribution or that does all of it, or it buys a vehicle or staff or whatever. Because like you said, it's not just the roads themselves, it's the plowing part of it too. And if we have all these walkable community areas, it's not going to do any good if they're not plowed. so.
Yeah, and realistically, I apologize first of all here because I'm making a couple of leaping presumptions. One is, first of all, that the road commission will even give us the authorization or the approval to do this project if you choose to, because you have to approve it. It's their roads. They are their roads.
You might want to
But-
hear from you shortly.
Yeah, but realistically, we've been doing some planning along those lines, Trustee Durant, and one of the reasons we bought that truck that we bought with the plow that we bought is so we can do some of those things ourselves. We can maintain our walkways, we can keep the pedestrian ways open in the wintertime with that vehicle. We're in the process of negotiating with a couple of different vendors, a couple of additional pieces of equipment for those purposes to try and remove some of that. But what I see the value in something like this as a demonstration project is that, for a long time, the Road Commission has been trying to get the county board to approve 1 mil countywide for maintenance, basically, that would free them up to do some other things, give them some funding to address some of the more major issues with their primary road network. But if we can alleviate some of the difficulties that they've got with our miles of road here in the township, that might give them some additional funding to be able to deal with some of the winter activities. Now, everybody that I talked to this winter was very pleased with the service the Road Commission provided here in the township. I mean, it was the first time in a long time that I can remember that people were actually stopping me saying they're really doing a good job this year. So I think they're seeing that, and they're starting to gear up for that with some very specific placements of individuals and pieces of equipment. And it worked well for us this year. And it was a lousy winter. I mean, it was a terrible winter.
I would just care to add to Trustee Durant's comment that, first of all, it's a good idea. But secondly, I think with the growth that's happening in the township, and if the millage is supported by the residents, some of those programs about, aggressive maintenance early in the spring, getting the sand out of there, some of those things could be put into that maintenance program that's not currently there because you're afforded that through growth and through perhaps the assistance of the Drain Commissioner and the county for bonding. So we certainly look forward to that in the future, making sure that we have implements to take care of the walking routes, and then to, like I said, aggressively get rid of sand and other things that take away from the performance of the road as you move it from winter into spring.
Ready?
I'm listening to everything, and I think great positive moving forward. The question I have is that as we're repairing these roads, are we also looking at infrastructure? That's something else we have to be concerned with in that too, on those that we have to do something with. Otherwise, 3 years we get all the roads done, 4th year we go back in and tear them up to do something on that. So
Yeah,
we want to get into that cycle.
Yeah, that is a key component, and Kirk is here as well. So all of those things have to be blended together. In those areas, we're actually in really good shape infrastructure-wise, subsurface. But again, just like when we did Werner, just like we did the intersections, even if we're off of the maintenance schedule, once those roads are opened up, we're repairing things and we're replacing valves and those things that wear out basically. Kirk has been very good about being aggressive, utilizing his funds basically to address those as we open the roads up, and that's our intention, is to continue to do that.
Dave, what say you?
Just a quick note on what you're talking about now with the infrastructure repair. It's one of the nice things about putting this on the ballot by November is you've got the winter to work the coordination with Mr. Page on making sure that the roads that are going to get reconstructed that year are having their infrastructure problems addressed. It's all just a matter of coordination and planning. And if you have to move one road up in reconstruction because that year it's got sewer going in it, then you move it up. But that's the nice part about having that much time to plan on it. And just to put it back in perspective for the residents, when we're talking Pazer 86, everybody on the board pretty much knows what that's talking about. But when we say the township roads will be nothing worse than a Pazer 6, that means nothing worse than what you're driving on Commerce Drive out here. That means everything in the township would be that grade of road or better. And when Manager Gerard said that it pushes the life expectancy of the roads out 13 years,
that it pushes life expectancy of the roads out 13 years if after you were done, you walked away and never touched them again. You're going to push them out for 13 years after they're finished. Asset management, one of the benefits of asset management is they've got the Payzer information from 2009 through 2013. And if you go back, recall my initial presentation, is one of the problems with asset management is the area that it considers when they put the program together. It doesn't take into account the local factors, freeze-thaw cycles and that type of stuff. And what puts that into that asset management program for us is because it has the Payzer information from 2009 through 2013. So it makes those local factors adjustments. And when you do the front-loaded approach, we're done in year 4, and you'll notice an asset management has another $150,000 a year out through 2021 for maintenance. And that's what it's forecasting to need repairs to get us out through 2021. And that's not to arrive at 2021 with a bunch of roads that need reconstruction. That's to arrive at 2021 with a bunch of roads that are Payzer 6 or better. So if we can arrive at that point on 2021, you're still pushed out 13 years. And then you have to keep looking at those Payzer ratings and asset management and considering every year when you budget it what it's saying needs to be repaired and what kind of repair needs to be applied, and some of it will be rehabilitation, chip seal and that as the roads get older. But it's taken all that into consideration. And then just a housekeeping matter, based on board comments at the last meeting and comments from the road commission at our meeting with Jim last week, was I went in and removed Ontario from the order of repair, and it only made a difference of $31,000 because most of that was not slated for any heavy reconstruction. But that took the balance of the primaries out. So I did remove that, and it's got an effective date of July 15th on it, so there's copies for the manager, and he can make those copies available to you.
Thanks, Dave. Jim and Mike, any comments you guys want to share with us? I mean, would you mind approaching the podium, just giving us your thoughts on it, Jim? I mean, they're your roads, buddy, and
Yeah, we realize you're really shy, but we'd like to hear something from you.
since we are discussing your roads,
Well, the road commission would appreciate any help we could get on this matter. Just to put it in perspective, what we get for the state for the whole county per year is about $5.5 million for the whole county. And again, that's the 19 townships, and that's our primary roads, and that's including making improvements as well as snow plowing and maintenance. So again, this program of between $6 and $7 million over a 15-year period is a very impressive project. And again, it's very exciting, and again, it would help our bottom line. Again, when we're out there in the wintertime and we're plowing over some of these roads that are in rough shape, and we know they're in rough shape, again, that does wear and tear on the equipment, as well as, you know, the additional drainage problems that they create because the water's not going where it's supposed to. And again, if this could be front-loaded and handled over a 3, 4, 5-year period of time up front, again, that would, I think, do tremendous things, not only for township residents, but for us at the road commission that needs to take care of these ultimately.
thank you. Any questions for Jim while we got him standing there at the podium? Lynn, go ahead.
How does the, are we responsible then for the 150,000, or is that, it's not gonna go to the road commission for maintenance, right? We would still either commission somebody or
It
get
may.
bids, or-
Basically, that 150,000 that Dave's talking about is in this 6 million.
Right,
Yeah, and that basically would be up to us at that point, working with the road commissioner, with other contractors or whatever, on how we spent that. Most likely it would be the road commission, most likely it would be their annual chip and crack seal program. that we would identify roads for, just as a guess. I mean, that makes the most sense, basically, as you're doing that. Or if we have very specific projects that we identify, if the road commission were able to do it, we would do it that way. If they're not, if they either didn't have the manpower or the equipment or whatever to do what needed to be done, we would bid it. With their approval, of course.
Again, the chip and crack seal program, we try to leverage all the townships together as well what we're doing on our primary road system to get a better dollar volume for everybody. So again, it's something that if the township wanted to bid it out themselves, we would allow that to happen. But again, that benefit of the whole, I think, is better if we, put the whole county together, because again, I think that gets some significant projects, and you get some bigger contractors willing to come in and give us some good prices on it.
Any other questions for Jim while we got him? Pete?
The Marquette County Road does the engineering on all these projects, right, Jim?
Yeah, we would work with the engineering now. Again, this project might stretch our limits a little bit. And again, if there is this commitment by the township, there are some innovative things that we might be able to look at, as I was thinking about it after we met with Randy, is that maybe we do a kind of a design build type contract with the contractors out there, again, to help get them on the ground and be able to use some of their expertise to save a couple of dollars, and not necessarily put the theory on the paper and then hope it works out there.
Oh, that's a good point. Other questions? Thank you, Jim. Appreciate it. Mike, anything you'd like to add?
Carroll, County Drain Commissioner. I was given a call this morning, so I haven't had much time to prepare or look into anything. From what I see of the project, and being a township resident, I commend you with taking these steps. I think it's something that's necessary. I would work hand in hand with the road commission on the drainage issues. As the roads are being constructed, we would look at where the water's going, how we can get it to the best location to cause the least amount of impact to residents. As far as funding goes, drains are typically funded through assessment. The Badger Creek drain, those of you that remember the process, we went through that 15, almost 20 years ago now. That was an assessment process where we come in, create the drain, and anything that gets, any costs that are incurred in the creating of that drain gets apportioned out to the beneficiaries within that drain. That being the residents, the township, road commissions, the state highway system. We proportion that out and everybody pays an equal share. When we did the Badger Creek drain, the township accepted that at large, paid all the residents' portion at large. We were able to go out, we tapped the road commission for a big chunk, but we were also able to get the state highway department to pay a large chunk of that also. So, I'm willing to sit down and work with you and look at, some of the funding mechanisms that we might be able to do through an assessment process and bring other people into the fold that might not be contributing dollars towards the process. As far as a revolving fund, when I talked to Jason this morning, I have a small one within the Badger Creek drain. When I talked with Jason and mentioned to him that there was some dollars available, I was looking more at chutes, rock riprap to get the water off the road into drainage mechanisms. I'm looking at about $40,000 total that I have to play with. And it only gets built up by about $2,000 a year, gets contributed to it. So I don't have a tremendous amount of money, but I'm willing to put what I can of that I don't need to have set aside for maintenance of the drain to assist with some of the things that Jim will be designing for getting the water off the roads and into some type of a conveyance system that gets it out of the area into a stream, river, lake, so that it impacts residents minimally.
Okay. Questions for Mike while we have him here? Pete?
I know it's kind of a dumb thing, but, water runoff and down in the streets are all the drains end up with sand and all the junk down there. Is there any other way for water to go down without the sand and the leaves and that, Mike? It just,
There's all kinds of mechanisms for that, and every day someone comes up with a new invention. The biggest problem is to put those into place, you really gotta look at the expense of putting curb and gutter in and a full stormwater conveyance system. And you put sumps in, there's sediment collectors you can put in your roadside drains that collect that sand, and then it doesn't impact things. If you're looking at going that route, you're probably taking your project and, I don't know, Jim, doubling it
Probably.
at minimum.
Yeah, the biggest problem that we have with most of the roads, particularly in Trowbridge, is there is nothing on the side of the roads that avoids the sand from washing out from under the road and onto the roadway, and particularly into the corners. You know, and that's one of the things with this project that we're looking at trying to address by putting rolled curbing and things such as that in, is to channel the water away from the sand, basically, so it's not carrying the sand off the side of the road.
that's our only salvation, to get the road curb, and so it's not taking that sand, because once they get it filled, we don't empty them. That's the problem.
One of the other problems we have in the township, and it's not just Marquette Township, it's countywide. A lot of road drainage is nothing more than an open ditch on the side of the road. Residents don't like it, they complain about it. When they complain enough, the road commission, they complain about the drainage issues. The only way to get the water off the edge of the road is to get a couple more feet over into a ditch. Road commission comes in, they clean that ditch out, they widen it, they make it so the water can travel through it. A lot of people don't like that there. Over in the next 5 years, it's all filled in again. Whether they put leaves in it, or they fill dirt in it, the culverts underneath their driveways aren't maintained, and all of a sudden, the water's back on the road again. It takes a lot of money to cure that problem, it really does.
Pete, the other thing with the bit curbs in the areas where we can use it is, again, shoulder maintenance is hard to get to, especially when there's not real wide shoulders. So again, by putting bit curb in those areas, that helps the edge of the road stay firm, and we don't have the edges breaking off when we use bit curb. So again, bit curb is a good thing for us, not only for drainage, but also for the shoulder maintenance. And again, you can put lawn or whatever right up tight to that bit curb, and again, that helps us on that maintenance side also.
I just want to make sure we ask all the questions, because, after you do a project like that, and you ask the people for their support, and all of a sudden you say, yeah, but here it is, here, 1 year after, you have to do the same thing again, I just want to make sure we ask the right questions at the right time.
Well, quite frankly, that's why your road committee and staff are saying this is the kind of a project we need. We don't need a Band-Aid, we need a cast, basically.
Right. Ernie?
When Jim was talking about the bit curb, all you have to do is look on Fair Avenue. It moves the water right down Fair Avenue.
On Badger Street, there's a section of Badger Street as well that was done, I think, as a demonstration project a year ago, and it's held up very well. That
And
section.
it also moves the sand with the winter digging on Fair Avenue, where you had the dirt where the gravel, where the tar was supposed to be. After those heavy rains, you could see the dirt and the sand come down. But now that they've repaved everything, it's not there anymore. It's gone. I don't know where it went. I think it's down in the collecting basin, right down Badger Creek down there. So, but bit curb does work.
That's why I really appreciate both of you coming tonight, taking your time to come and work on this with us, so thank you.
It's a big project. I think that you can see the support from the board members, and we certainly have heard it from the residents that they've asked us to address it, and we're trying to do the right thing. It's just a matter of what's the right thing, how aggressive can we be, what will solve our issues, and you're right, we can't double the cost of the project and get the best drainage in there. As much as we would like to do that, it just wouldn't be possible, right?
Kirk, has anything?
But I think that we have we have an opportunity here, and it's really what we're asking the board to do at this point is, are we moving it forward? The question before us as a board is, are we prepared to move it forward? And if so, then what the direction are we going in? Are we talking about 1.5 mils moving it forward? Do we want to start looking at what that ballot language looks like? Clerk Rattari said we have a little bit of time to get it onto the November ballot, but that little bit of time means like one meeting from now. So it's a very small window if that's where we're going with this. Secretary?
Well, just a comment, for my 10 years here, I've been involved with the township since 2004, when I was first elected as a trustee. And I have to say, I think this is the first time in my time here, we've had an opportunity and a reasonable millage to get this done, in my estimation. So all we're doing is we can draft the millage language, then approve it, and then we present it to the voters. They have the ultimate say in the project. We, as the board, we just put it on the ballot. And I'm willing to, with those comments said, I'm willing to make a motion to draft millage language for 1.5 mils over 15 years.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Motion and a second. Other comments? Go ahead, Ernie.
When you say draft the millage for 1.5, in the past, we've kind of put something in the millage language as to what we're trying to do. I think it's going to be very difficult because we're talking about so much activity, how we're going to lay that out for the people so they understand that too, so.
Maybe we need a name for the
Yeah,
project.
something.
Well, this is, we have referenced this as the road rehabilitation, township road rehabilitation project. And, one of the things that we had talked about very briefly previously is the way I would suggest the language be drafted be 1.5 mils to accomplish the road rehabilitation program as adopted or as proposed by the board, and then publish it. The one thing that we have going in a couple of things we have going in our favor. Number one, it's the major issue in the township, roads and transportation. I mean, we're still talking about where the truck's going to go. I mean, everything along those lines. Second thing is we've got two major demonstration projects where not only has the board asked the voters to put their faith in the board for a project, but you've delivered. The board has, the elected officials have delivered on what they said they were going to do within the dollar amounts that they said they were going to do it. So that's a very powerful tool that you have. You have, in some respects, you have the faith of the residents behind you because you've done what you said you're going to do. You did it with these buildings. You did it with the road projects. You've done it with the things that you've set forth to do and have been diligent about delivering a quality product for a quality price. So I think those are valuable. And, if we do have time, one of the things you might want to do is to have the clerk draft the proposed language, but at your next meeting, schedule a public hearing regarding roads. Have the residents come in, tell them to watch this meeting on YouTube. Get the word out to watch the meeting and have a public under a public forum, just a general forum discussion to see if you have the support out there for roads, or if people come and say, no, it's too much.
Secretary?
Yeah, my intention as the drafter of the language, I would reference the road facilities plan as adopted by this board, and then as we said, we would publish that. And I think we do have enough outlets to get that out to the residents, and we would have enough time to educate them on that. And like I said, I think it's a good plan, and like I said, we're in the position to do this right now, and I would hate to miss that window, as I would say, because we get all the roads at least up to a Pacer 6 or better in the next 5 years. I think the residents will be very happy. So, and we've done it, and ultimately the question is up to them. Like I said, we're the avenue of getting it to the ballot, but the ultimate is their wishes. If they don't support the roads, then at least we've done what we could to try to, make that happen for them. So, like I said, that I think it's, to my opinion, I'm already paying 8.85 mils. Another 0.6 is another $40 for me. If my car hits a pothole and the front end gets knocked out of alignment, $40 isn't gonna fix it. So, I think that's a good, comparable to what it costs for most people.
We have a motion and a second to move forward, to instruct the clerk to provide the road rehabilitation plan millage language back to this board for the next meeting. Any other comments? Now to call the question. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion passes. Thank you for your participation, gentlemen. Thank you, Dave, and the road committee. Thank you, Jason, for all the work you put in on this, as well as you,
I think our
Manager
work
Gerard.
just begun.
Yep, but, I mean, if we can move it forward, like I said earlier, the education of residents is gonna be the key for their support. I think Jason came up with a good idea to have staff available a couple days a week to know that, hey, we'll block out an hour of time on those 2 days, or whatever it is, that someone will be here dedicated to specifically, we'll take your home and your home's taxable value, and we'll tell you what the difference is between what you're paying now and what this means to you. If we have to win them over one by one, and we can do that, that's a good victory. I mean, it's about education, it's about sharing the information. I think most people will understand it when they look at the value that they'll get for the amount that they're investing. Plus, I think it's important, like Jason said, to blow those up and show them, well, what year does my road get fixed? Because that's what they want to know. Everybody wants to know, how does that impact me? But, you know, what year does my road get fixed? So I'm asking you, no, seriously, what year does my road get fixed? But now we're talking. I appreciate all your help on this, and I appreciate the board's thoughtful consideration and questions that led up to moving forward.
Well, Dennis, another thing, you get a little sheet of paper and carry it with you, because while you're out in public, if you get somebody asks you a question, you can pull it out and just ask, how many, the millage, what's it gonna consist of, and,
Well, I think what we'll do is Dave, as Dave mentioned, he updated what has been passed out previously, updated and dated it today. So what we'll do is we'll upload that to our web system, and we'll run copies off, because you folks haven't seen the updated one. So we'll run copies for all of you, so you've got it, so you can answer those questions.
Thanks.
Dennis?
Yep.
Our next meeting then is right before the next election, so can we have anything at the election? I mean, we could talk about it that Monday night of our meeting, because election would be Tuesday. We can't have flyers or anything at the election with this stuff, right? Unless it's like outside 20 feet or something.
Well, I'm not sure. Clerk Rattari can answer that question.
In the next election, our meeting will be on the Monday night before would be the August primary. This question's going to be in November.
Right.
We're not going to want anything. We
But
can't.
we'll have all those voters there.
Yeah,
So
but we
all I was
unfortunately, unless it's 100 feet away, you can't do any campaigning or anything.
Okay.
So if you wanted to have like a sign or a booth
Okay.
100 feet away, that's fine.
But they
Well,
would be
if
in the
if
hall.
it's not on this election, though, would we not be able to post it in the vestibule of the
That's what I
voting
wondered.
facilities?
We have the posters out here, so as people
Yeah,
come
if
through,
it's in the
Yeah.
at
building.
least they can look at it, they can see
Yeah.
No,
the,
it's not on this election.
We
Right,
can't
right.
have it in the polling place, but we can have it out in a vestibule
Yeah.
here. So.
That's what I thought.
And then we can talk about it Monday night, too,
Right.
and, okay.
Nothing more than an informational sign.
That's all it is.
Yeah.
It's a road project that we're planning to do, and we're considering millage for it, but it's not on the millage, it's not on the ballot as a millage question.
Okay, at least we can have the information
Mhm.
available for all those people. Okay, thank you.
good question, Lynn.
If I may, just for the sake of clarity, if we can all get in the habit of calling it the Township Road Rehabilitation Project. The road facilities plan is a completely different document that has implications of its own at this time with bypass roading and other things. So the Township Road Rehabilitation Project, I think, would be appropriate, or whatever the acronym is for that.
What I'll do tonight, before you folks leave, is I'll give you a hard copy of this, because that is what it's titled. This is my finance sheets.
Henceforth noted, I've already got it written down.
Yep.
The next item on our agenda is moving into new business 10A, consider payment of the parking capacity expansion. As you know, you did receive a transmittal from Manager Gerard in regards to the parking capacity expansion dated July 10th. Attached for the approval is the billing for the expansion. As everyone's aware, it became painfully obvious to us after the completion of the Township Hall and Community Center. Some of the first big events we held, we found out that we were creating a situation where we had attendees to the meetings parking out on Commerce Drive in a less than ideal area with the speed of the cars and the amount of traffic that is on Commerce Drive. That did result in us moving forward, and what you see before you now is the bill for that parking lot, which is finished and available for parking from Overstar in the amount of $75,000. Anything to add, Manager Gerard?
Just very briefly, what this is the last piece of this construction project. Basically, we have about $74,000 and 74.5 remaining to be drawn on this. The remaining funds would come out of our township improvement funds to pay for this. And the only thing that remains in this project is we have two pole lights yet to be installed.
Thank you, Clerk Rattari.
Yeah, this, if this is approved, you will see it in the budget amendment, a few items down.
Anybody care to make a motion?
I'll make the motion to pay.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve for payment the $75,000 to Overstar for the installation of the new parking area. Any board member comment?
Only comment I have, I'm up here almost every day, and they've been working in the far, away from the parking lot. And that we have that one entrance in the far end of the new parking lot, and they've been driving those big trucks in there into that. And I got looking at it, and I said, wait, we don't want to ruin it before we even start to use it now.
No, we've already talked about that, and they will put that back there. We'll have actually 3 driveways. We'll have, one on each end and the one in the middle that we have now. And basically what's happening is any issues that arise on that end will be taken care of before they finish their project over there.
Okay, so I was concerned when they start using our new driveway to do whatever they're doing down there with those great big trucks and that too, so.
No other comments? We have a motion and a second to approve for payment $75,000 to Overstar for the installation of the parking lot. All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? That motion passes. Thank you. Next item on your agenda is 10B, consider final payment for the Center Street lift station. You do have a transmittal in your packet dated July 8th from Superintendent Page, Public Works. Final payment for the Center Street lift station. The transmittal reads, attached as a final pay request for the Center Street wastewater lift station. The total cost of the project was $247,733.99, of which we agreed to pay 50% as it was designed to serve Trowbridge Park as well as a portion of Cedarville. You do see the invoice attached for the final amount of $23,867. We do have Superintendent Page here, so Kirk, is there anything that we need to add to what I just said?
I mean, it's pretty straightforward. I've neglected to mention, though, the project was basically completed, I believe, in 2010. And basically, we just never got the last bill until, recently, so just an oversight on the part of the developer. So it's good to know. The thing I was concerned about was the final value of the total project with the breakdown, so I can, plan my replacement program for different components based on the actual value, so.
Are there any questions for Mr. Page while we have him here? Ernie?
The only question I have is the 50% that we're paying ourselves, that's portion of that is for the individuals or property up on the north end up there that we're working right up at this point in time.
Correct, yes, the current project.
Current project.
And
Now-
a previous project and 2 future projects are gonna discharge.
Now, the cost of this is being incorporated in that total cost of that full project, correct? This $123,000, which was our portion of it. So what I'm
No.
saying is,
Well, go ahead.
when we originally talked about this, it was gonna be split between Cedarville and the township. And the ones that were gonna benefit from this was this section up there. And like all the other sections, whatever cost it was supposed to be spread against the individuals who are gonna have access to or use it. So I'm saying this $123,000 is part of that total project, which is gonna have to be spread amongst all the property owners up there as the payback for the whole sewer thing up, which is like all the rest of the projects within the township and that.
Well, not strictly speaking, the things like lift stations are borne by all the sewer customers at large. So in other words, you don't charge every single project, to individual benefiting parcels. There's certain things like in the water system, for example, you've got transmission mains, okay, which are different than, tributary mains that are, off the transmission mains. Same thing with lift stations. I mean, you need a lift station, that's a function of the system at large. So just because you might live in an area that doesn't require a lift station, and actually very few areas do, but everybody pays for those major components.
Now, that's different than what we originally discussed when we first started, because I brought that up at that point in time, and it was stated that that was gonna be spread back towards that area as it is developed. And because if you don't need a lift station, you don't pay for it, but if you have to have a lift station for that area, someone's gotta pay for it, which means all the rest of the individuals on the sewer system is paying for this and that.
Correct, yes.
And I'm
mean, it's
going
certainly
back to what
discussed.
I paid for everything that had to be maintained for my area and that. And I think anyone that within the Trowbridge area, to go back and look at what happened, they'll find out everything was brought together as the total cost of the project.
Correct, but like I said, major components of the system, are spread among everybody. It's always been that way. And I can tell you, a lot of people have been coming out in about this specific project. In a lot of cases, they want to basically vent about everything that's happened in the past, for the last 40 years. They're claiming that they have paid for your sewer and even US 41 sewer out of their own pockets, which is indirectly true. I mean, there was one project where there was general millage, okay, which everybody paid, including people that had no sewers, no nothing, that was spread across the whole township. So, we've had the discussion. The discussion about this particular project was, it was to benefit. I had a design previously that called for a lift station to be built in that neighborhood. That would have to be, all the water would go into a different lift station. They'd have to force main that across Trowbridge Park for half a mile to the east side of Trowbridge Park, where it would dump into another lift station that everybody paid for, okay? And then from there, it would go into a second lift station that everybody paid for, no matter where they were located. So this particular project, the benefit to that neighborhood and the benefit to the system as a whole was, basically I had acquired a $500,000 asset for $125,000, which is going to serve basically the whole community. So that's, that was the discussion. Plus, it eliminated the need for a major force main, and I don't remember what that cost, but, there was certainly costs associated with it, probably another couple $100,000. So, everybody benefited by this arrangement. So, and everybody is paying their share.
Lynn?
I think what I was thinking where you were going with that was, if I remember, it's been a few years, but I was thinking this was a 3 or 4 phase project, and this was one of them. Cedarville decided they needed it. We had done an upgrade, they did a small one, and this bigger one was needed.
Right.
And I thought what Ernie was going to ask was, is this part of that 3 or 4-fold project? This is just one phase of it. There's actually 2 more,
Correct.
right? Okay. That's what I was thinking. Okay. And all right, I'm good.
Yeah, if I may, this is,
Secretary?
sorry.
And actually, everyone does benefit, because if we do have more users on the system, it does help reduce the rates and such. So it does help everyone that we have more users. And then Superintendent Page is correct. Any major infrastructure like that, it doesn't matter if it's here, City of Marquette, wherever, the utility, builds that, maintains it, because it's just, everyone benefits from it in the long run. So, but I agree with Lynn, that was probably where Ernie was going with that, I'm sure.
Randy?
No, what I was going to say is that basically what we're working towards is a fully integrated system that covers the entire portion of the township. And at that point, everybody benefits because it's all pieces. It's very similar to the BLP. The BLP right now doesn't have a completely looped system. They have one more substation they have to build, and that'll likely be somewhere here in the township in the southern part of the system, but then everybody on the system is going to pay for that, even though it's designed specifically to cover the growth that's going on here and the future growth that's going on in this quadrant of the area, basically its service area, but everybody in the system will pay for it. It's the same kind of a thing. Now, the other piece that I was going to mention is that there's a lot of talk about, yeah, well, when we did it, everybody paid for that part of the sewer. That's true because the funding mechanism at that time required that. Every time you have these grants that come out or these financing packages, they specify how it's going to be paid back. That particular one required everybody, and as Kirk said, even people that weren't even on the system had to pay that. It was a municipality-wide millage, or levy, not millage, assessment. And others, like the SRFs that we're doing now, are only for those areas that benefit.
It was millage. In fact, that's the year that the township switched to charter, which allowed them, extra millage. And that was basically the kickstart for that was 20-year-old sewer project in Trowbridge Park. I mean, the township has been looking at sewers in Trowbridge Park for over 40 years. Okay. This particular neighborhood has been left out. Okay. So they're 40 years later, they're starting to get sewers. And they're paying their share, believe me.
They never wanted it until now.
What you're referring to, is newer customers that are connected to the system. That's where your connection fees come in. That's why connection fees need to rise. Because if you got somebody that paid, a connection fee that was much smaller 20 years ago, okay, that's why the new customers, they're still paying for their benefiting parcels, for that part of the infrastructure. But the previous system, that's serving that particular part of the infrastructure, okay, that's where the connection fees come into. So that's why they need to rise. Because the rising connection fees only impact the new customers.
Right. Because you're back funding.
Correct.
Because you already got the benefit of getting it out to you in the first place.
Right.
Okay. Other questions? Clerk Chari?
Move to pay make a motion to pay Oberstar $23,867.00 not to exceed for that final payment of that lift station.
Second.
Motion is second. Any other comment? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Superintendent Page. Appreciate you being here tonight. The next item on your agenda is consider budget amendment number 2014-07. Clerk Rattari.
As I stated before, I'll present to the board the budget amendment 2014-07. The highlight of that is authorization is requested for the payment to the parking lot construction adjacent to the community center. The final payout will cover the cost of the $75,000. Also requested is an increase in grinder pumps and lateral departments by $25,000 and $75,000 respectively. The materials and the work by the grinder pumps during the freeze-up period has necessitated this. Also, extensive work done by Oberstar during the freeze-up is requiring additional funding. The offset will come from the replacement and improvement. And I make a motion to approve the budget amendment.
Support.
Motion and support. Board member comment? Seeing none. Clerk Rattari?
Clerk Rattari is yes. Treasurer Johnson?
Yes.
Trustee LaRue?
Yes.
Trustee Durant?
Yes.
Trustee Truscott?
Yes.
Supervisor Lemata?
Yes.
Motion carries 6-0 and 1 absent.
Thank you. Next item on your agenda for consideration is the consultant proposal for maintenance inspection of the 320,000-gallon Chapel Ridge Water Reservoir. Again, you do have a transmittal in your packet dated July 8th from Superintendent Page discussing the need for it, also the proposal from Nelson Tank Engineering and Consulting to perform the 5-year maintenance inspection. he did have in there specifically what it is that they're going to accomplish with this proposal, as well as that the proposal was originally made last year, but the project was deferred for a year because of the Cox Water Reservoir being out of service last year for cathodic protection installation. Superintendent Page does recommend acceptance of the attached Nelson Tank Engineering Consulting proposal for $2,600 for inspection utilizing the conventional drain and clean method in preparation of a report. Superintendent Page is here if you feel the need to ask any questions about this project. I would entertain a motion to approve or deny this for $2,600.
So moved.
Second. Okay.
We have motion and support for asking Superintendent Page to move forward with the proposal of $2,600 for the tank inspection. Any board member questions or comments?
Going through this, looking at section here, and you talk fees for Article 2, an alternate ROV method. Is that something different than what you're talking about right now, Kurt? Because it's only $300, $200 more, $300 more.
Right, yeah, this is basically the same proposal we had last year, and that was a little bit more detailed last year. It's only $300 more, but by draining the tank and having a physical inspection, it's just a much more thorough and more valuable inspection. So the remote operated vehicle is basically, just like it says, it's a robot, okay, that's taking photos inside a tank filled with water. So I'm not saying it's not good, I'm just saying draining the tank and just getting up right into the tank and doing the visual, and actually, they do, they actually cut the coating to determine, how much life is left and how much it's deteriorated. So it's just a better inspection, in my opinion.
So what you're saying is, what we're talking about is draining the actual tank now.
Right,
and
yeah.
Physically going in and inspecting
Right,
it
yeah.
versus leaving the water in and putting a robot in there to go through and look at
Right,
it.
yeah. The disadvantage is having a tank out of service means we have to have an alternate way of providing water. So in this case, it's basically going to have to be pretty much, we'll have to provide the whole township with our city water supply.
Any other questions? Pete?
Kirk, what's the life of a tank? Even though you have inspected and you reline them.
Well,
and
if
stuff
you
like
keep
that.
up with this, this is basically an asset management type system, so it could last forever.
Okay.
Because it's steel and it's
Right.
coated. So basically you don't, if it corrodes, then, it could have a pretty short life expectancy. But if you just keep it from corroding, which is basically what we're trying to do.
So the importance of doing this.
Last forever, yes,
Okay.
absolutely.
Thank you.
Manager Gerard?
Yeah, that is the comment that I was going to add. Just so the residents recognize there's not anything wrong with this tank. It's preventative maintenance. It's our routine maintenance program, and basically I agree with Kirk. Anytime you can have an up-close and personal physical inspection of the tank as opposed to a remote vehicle, it's that much better, because as he mentioned, you can do things on a physical inspection that you can't do with a remote, like you check the lining to see how much life is left in it, what its consistency is, whether it's getting brittle, whether it's, those kinds of things. And realistically, that is the mission. The mission is to keep, even though the water is very high quality water, it's still corrosive. Water is corrosive with metal, and you want to keep it away from that metal.
Yeah, these inspections are basically, it's just real-time feedback on your plan. So in other words, I could do a maintenance plan, every 5 years I'm going to do this, every 20 years I'll do that. But this is basically, like I said, it's instant feedback on, okay, do I need to do something in 5 years, or can it be 6 years, or 3 years, 100 years, or whatever? So, and you do this like every 5 years. You just take an actual look.
When you process of draining it, are you using the water down to a point and then
Right,
switching over
yeah.
to another alternative?
Other questions? Seeing none, we have a motion and second to authorize Superintendent Page to move forward with the tank inspection contract. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? That motion passes. Thank you, Kirk. Next item on your agenda is the manager's report. Manager Gerard.
Very quickly, I only have one comment, well, actually, two comments I'd like to make. Number one is the very first one is on your sheet, a reminder that the UP Summit is coming up here very quickly. There is a drop-dead date, basically, August 12th, for the early bird registration, so any of the board members, I know Trustee LaRue has already enrolled, but any of the other board members who wish to participate in this here in Marquette, please get in touch with Lois right away so we can reserve your seat and get that taken care of. The other thing I wanted to mention is there have been several questions about lighting. The board earlier this year, during the budget process, actually it was earlier this year, during the budget process did approve a street lighting project that I have submitted to the Board of Light and Power. We've not started that project as yet. We do have one other aspect, lighting over by North Star Academy, and we are awaiting the decision of Duke Life Point as to whether they'll be locating here in the township or not. Because if they are, there'll be some reconfiguration of those roadways over there, so we're not investing in lighting over there until we know what's going to happen with those roads. So we anticipate that to be sometime in August. Other than that, any questions?
Questions for Manager Gerard? Lynn?
I'm just wondering how many years we have left on the city discount for our water? Is that like 12 years maybe? Thinking-
Kirk
seemed like
is,
it was 18
it's
when I
through
came in.
2025.
Unless you reach
Unless we reach either $560,000 of savings or that time frame comes up.
any other questions? Pete?
Regardless of what happens to Duke Life, we will have these poles, or the lights up for the school.
Yes. Yep.
Nothing else? Thank you, Manager Gerard. Next item on your agenda was the item added. You do have a handout that was delivered at your spot at the beginning of the meeting from the Keweenaw Bay Indian community and transmittal to Manager Gerard. Basically, we're just a pass-through agency. The request was made and authorized by this board for $3,000 to North Star Academy's K-12 music program for the purchase of instruments. What you're seeing is the transmittal from the KBIC Tribal Council Treasurer that it was granted, and a check was sent on behalf of the Keweenaw Bay Indian community in the amount of $3,000 for their 2% funding. It does come to Marquette Charter Township, and really what we need is a motion to just, it's a pass-through to the North Star Academy, correct?
That's correct, and I apologize for not being in your packet. We just received it this afternoon. I did talk with Karen Anderson, and there is some urgency in them getting this funding so they can order the instruments. So that's why I asked that it be added to the agenda.
I'll make the motion.
I'll second.
Motion and second. Board member comment?
I'll leave it up to clerk to put it in the right wording.
Um,
I'll just copy because we had a few pass-throughs before, I'll just
We have.
use that.
And basically, the motion is typically just to receive and pass through to the North Star Academy the contribution from KBIC, 2% gaming funds.
If there's no other comment, all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion passes. Thank you.
Dennis? Could I ask Manager Gerard about one thing?
Sure.
I have asked about, since Jim Waneke is here, about the white lines on Wright Street. Is he the one, or does MDOT do that, or, we're not the city of Marquette, so we can't ask the mines to do that, so.
Are you referring to the fog lines on the side of the road or the center lines? The center lines, okay.
Up the hill, but, as you're coming into township, they're a little bit faded out.
If I recall prior conversation, and Jim can correct me if I'm wrong, I think there is work scheduled to be done on that segment of road this year.
Because they're sort of fading out, and with the trucks coming up and the cars coming around, it'd be a lot easier since, just if they have some kind of an answer.
Those will be redone as part of our pavement marking program, and typically they're done in late August, early September. But those are planning to be redone.
All right, thank you. Thanks.
Thank you. This brings us up to public comment. Those members of the public wishing to make comment may do so at this time.
John Marks, 155 Hidden Springs. I just wanted to comment that, in my opinion, the road rehabilitation project proposal is well planned, and it was presented well. Every citizen will benefit from its adoption. Every citizen, whether it's the road in front of them or just in the community at large. And I also would like to comment that residents should be reminded that in addition to everybody benefiting and enjoying road repair and maintenance, property road appeal comes with the improvement of those roads in front of their home and in their neighborhood. Visitors and potential investors are impressed when they drive down through a neighborhood and the roadway is not full of potholes. So we need to add that to the improvements that will be enjoyed if this is adopted, and it should be. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Marks. Those are great comments. Anyone else? Public comment? Seeing none, we will close public comment. Move to additional comments from board members. Clerk Terry?
Just a reminder that our next meeting will be on the Monday night before the election, so that's Monday, August 4th at 7 p.m. The election will be Tuesday, August 5th, so if you come Tuesday, there'll be an election, but there won't be a meeting.
Pete?
Just a reminder, 18 days, August 2nd, at the Lions Field. If you don't know where it is, it's off of Fair Avenue, Vanderboom School. Just turn there, go down Erie Street 1 block. Be a great afternoon from 10 in the morning, 11 in the morning till 10 at night. Come and join us. Thank you.
Thanks, Pete. Ernie?
A couple items. I attended the Township Business Association today, and a couple items they're working on is, one is the signage coming in to the township on the east and the west side. On the east side, they went through and they stained it, and they got new flowers and everything else out there. Looks very nice. The next project is on the west end, over by the telephone company, AT&T. They'll be working on that in the next couple of weeks and that. They're also looking at possibly redoing the signs, making them a whole different look, keeping the original sign in there, putting like a monument type. But as they get further down the road, it will be coming to the board for our review and that. So what they did have was very good, and that they're looking ahead to try and entice people to what we got here, showing people what's going on. So it's going to be nice. And they're looking also, if possible, a lighted sign. And I just kind of says, okay, I don't know how they're going to do it, but it'll be something to think about in that too. But that'll be coming to us. The other they're working on is a new pamphlet they put out for the township, redoing that, and with different pictures, different logos on it, everything else, so more or less has a better image for the township. So that's a couple of things they're doing. They're looking at trying to get some history of the township to put in that booklet or pamphlet or whatever you want to call it. So it provides a historical look as a township from the beginning up to now, what's all happened. And the growth factor, they were very interested in trying to put the growth factor of the township in the last 10 to 15 years, so anyone thinking about coming into the area, all of a sudden, wow, this is really growing and they're moving forward in that, to kind of entice people to think about us. I think the only other thing is the comment that the supervisor made concerning charter communication, and that if you have concerns with what they're trying to do, call them and complain to them. Because I can't see 170-some channels. I have no use for 170-some channels and that. It's ridiculous and that. And they say it's free. Well, it's not free. In a year, you're going to be paying another $6 to $7 more a month on that. So that's all. I won't go any further.
Thanks, Ernie. Diana?
Nothing.
Lynn?
No, thanks.
Again, I'll echo what Pete said about the fourth annual Lions Field Catch the Vision Community Days. We're trying to, when you think about just a few years ago when we set out and we got an events committee who, we haven't talked about them in a while, but these guys just pulled off an incredibly successful car show over at Applebee's. They had 140 cars participating in that. The nice thing was my daughter's graduation open house was here in the community center, and all those cars left to go on a parade, and they drove by. And somebody accused me of arranging that for my daughter's open house, and I did take full credit for that, although, however, that was just a happy coincidence. But it was nice to see 140 cars participating. I think that was just awesome, and it shows what that small group of folks can accomplish. And they've done just an incredible job with the events, whether it's the Christmas tree lighting, the car show, and certainly the Community Day at Lions Field. One of the things that we talked about with folks was we needed a place to rally around, and we built the community center, and it's getting a lot of use. We've put some of these events in place, which also highlights the fact that we still have many great opportunities for volunteers who would like to get involved in their community. I mean, if you haven't noticed in the last 5 years or however long we've been together as a board of elected officials, we take great pride in our community, and we've tried to make a difference. I talk a lot with board members about what's our legacy, what's the legacy we leave behind. Is it better than when we found it? And I think that every one of us can look in the mirror and say, yes, it is. From the improvements at Lions Field to the community events that are going on, I think that if you look at your, not only those elected officials, but your appointed administrative staff, they take a great pride in this community. And we've made some really good things happen here. We're not done yet. There's some more things on our agenda. We're all working hard. We have a strategic agenda, every year that we continue to check things off. We haven't pulled it out recently, but it's coming, I assure you. On the next agenda, we're going to talk a little bit about it. And I think I just really want to highlight some of the things, the positive vibe that we have in this community. We talk about what a great place to live, work, and play, and visit. And, I mean, sometimes I tell people we're the fastest growing township in the state of Michigan. Well, I'm not sure what I'm basing that on, other than I just have the feeling that we are. But I take so much pride in what we've accomplished, and I think that we have so many opportunities for people to get involved. It's always done by a small group, and you guys have heard me say it many times, but if you're interested, you have a driving interest behind something, you'd like to see an event happen in the community, attend one of the event committee's meetings and talk to them about how you'd like to be the driving force behind that. If you can take one passionate individual who wants to make something happen, we can make it happen. So I hope everybody turns out August 2nd. It's going to be great. We're going to have softball tournament. There's going to be an old-timers game going on after the softball tournament's over. We've got great concessions, again, sponsored by the Marquette Township Fire Department members. There is a beer tent by the Lions Club. Pete LaRue is really trying to get a Marquette Township Lions Club together. He's about halfway there. We're looking for people who would be interested in the service organization to step up and help. And speaking of that, they will have a beer tent this year, which I just want to remind everybody, absolutely no carry-ins. It will be strictly enforced. For a couple of reasons. Number one, for liability. When those guys take on the liability of providing a beer tent, it means they take on the liability of any alcohol consumption during that event. So if you do bring in carry-ins, it will be policed. You will be asked to remove them. Also, it's a fundraiser. It's designed to bring money in to get poured back into the community, to get supported back into Lions Field. So we would ask that no carry-ins and that you do support, if you're going to consume adult beverages, that you do so only through the beer tent available by the Lions. And if you're not going to consume adult beverages, there's many excellent concessions available through the Marquette Township Fire Department volunteers. Clerk, sorry.
One more quick comment. This will be our first election since the new facilities. So if you're on the south side of US 41, precinct, I think that was precinct 2, you will be voting here at the new facility. And we'll put signs over there so if people show up, they'll know where to come. And if you're precinct 1, which is north side, you'll still be in St. Christopher's Church basement. So, so hopefully with the new facilities, I'm excited. It'll be great for elections because they'll have a nice big room finally. So, with that, I'll make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Support.
We have motion and support to adjourn this meeting. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? This meeting is adjourned. Thank you.